During the Bush years, we fought hard against radical ideas, like some enshrined in their signature bill after 9/11, the Patriot Act. But now some of what used to be considered radical departures from American tradition have become normalized, even hardly noticed. For example, quietly and quickly, Congress reauthorized the Patriot Act last week, just before ducking out for the holiday weekend. The Senate passed the bill 72-23. The House followed suit just hours later, passing it 250 to 153. All in all, more than 80 Democrats supported the bill. What happened? I thought Democrats didn't like this bill under Bush. Did something change? In fact, one of the bill's biggest opponents was a Republican. Senator Rand Paul fought to amend the bill last week to take out some of the civil liberty abuses in it. And he got hammered for it by none other than Harry Reid.
Unless the senator from Kentucky stops standing in the way, our law enforcement will no longer be able to use some of the most critical tools they need to counter terrorists and combat terrorism. If they cannot use these tools, tools that identify and track terrorist suspects, it could have dire consequences for our national security.
Now, that's quite a switch from how Senator Reid felt about people who fought against the Patriot Act during the Bush years.
Think of what happened 20 minutes ago in the United States Senate. We killed the Patriot Act.
Senator Reid seemed quite proud to oppose the Patriot Act back then. So why is he one of its biggest supporters today? Has the bill actually changed, or has the Democratic Party changed? We really want to know what happened, and that's what we're trying to figure out tonight. So to help me do that, we're going to bring in Jeffrey Rosen. He's a law professor at George Washington University. He's also the legal affairs editor at the New Republic. Jeffrey, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Let me start with that fundamental question. Is there something significantly different about this Patriot Act as opposed to the one during the Bush years?
Absolutely not. In fact, the three most controversial provisions of the Patriot Act were reauthorized with barely any debate. These are the provisions that authorized roving wiretaps, the infamous Section 215, which allows the government to seize any tangible thing, data, cell phone records, what have you, merely by saying that it's relevant to a terrorism investigation. And then finally, these secret national security letters that also allow the government to seize any data, and if you receive this letter, you're not even allowed to mention it to anyone else. And investigation in 2007 found serious and widespread abuse of these letters. It found there were 140,000 of them issued between 2003 and 2005, many with people with no connection to terrorism. These are the very provisions that Harry Reid and other Democrats properly denounced during the Bush years. And this past week, as you said, with barely any debate, the same people just voted to reauthorize these terrible provisions.
You know, throughout this entire time, for what's been about 10 years now, I've never understood why this is remotely constitutional. So without a court order, they're going and telling people, okay, I want to have your records, whether they're going to a business, whether they're going to a doctor's office. These national security letters, for example, that, you know, part of what you mentioned, how is that in any way constitutional? Isn't it an obvious violation of the Fourth Amendment?
You know, you might well think so. After all, the Fourth Amendment says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizures shall not be violated. But the Supreme Court in the 1970s said that there may be a national security exception to the Fourth Amendment. It hasn't said definitively that these national security letters are constitutional, but seizing on this possibility of a national security exception, essentially the Bush and now I guess the Obama administration too have allowed the police, the government, to do with these national security letters what they can't do in ordinary investigations, and merely by saying that my cell phone records might be relevant to a terrorism investigation, those records can be seized and I might not even ever know about it. I'm stunned by it. This is the stuff that we used to be outraged by. I mean, without any probable cause. If you got probable cause on somebody, by all means, of course you should do an investigation of them. That's why we have the FBI. That's why we have the authorities. But to say, hey, you know what? I don't know. Professor Rosen looks kind of fishy. Let me go grab all his records. I don't see why any conservative, liberal, or moderate, or any American should be in favor of that. But it gets worse. Senator Wyden is talking about how the government is using the Patriot Act in a secret way we might not even know about. What in the world is that about? That was just extraordinary. In the debate over the Patriot Act, Senator Wyden, the Oregon Democrat, said he was very troubled that the government, the Obama administration, had embraced an interpretation of the act that might allow data that had nothing to do with terrorism to be seized. And Wyden wanted to propose an amendment requiring, at the very least, the government to say what its interpretation of the Patriot Act was. But even that simple transparency requirement was too much for his fellow Democrats and Republicans, and they refused to bring that to the vote. You know, really, what's so distressing about this, it shows that the Democrats, the big government Democrats, are no more consistently devoted to civil liberties than the Republicans. There's really a small coalition of civil libertarian Democrats like Senator Wyden, like Senator Russ Feingold, who was the only senator to vote against the Patriot Act the first time around, and then even libertarian conservatives like Rand Paul, who, as you said, really did very good work on this subject. They're the ones who are against this, but the vast majority of Democrats and Republicans are going to let it sail through without any objections.
It's just real quick, last question, and I don't know if you can answer this, but why? You know, people say there's no bipartisanship, but this is bipartisanship in the wrong direction. Why do they all agree to do things that seem so unconstitutional?
Because it's popular. Senator John Ashcroft liked to cite a poll that said that 50% of the country thought the Patriot Act was just right, 20% thought it didn't go far enough, and only 20% thought it went too far. That 20% minority are those civil libertarians and libertarian conservatives, but like it or not, it's the sad truth is that majorities of Americans are not troubled by this Patriot Act, and they should be, because it could be fixed so easily. We could still get the terrorists and also protect civil liberties, as Senator Wyden says, and I really hope that President Obama, the former constitutional law professor, will think the better of it and at some point fix these dreadful provisions.
Right. And you know what? People might change their mind if they knew what was in the Patriot Act and if somebody pointed it out to them. But Jeffrey Rosen, law professor at George Washington University, thank you for pointing it out to us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks.